So I actually had a fully public breakdown where I probably posted several hundred posts within a span of 48 hours.
Yeah.
And I pretty much revealed everything about my life, all my secrets, the people who had done me dirty. I ranted about things I was upset about. At one point, I stripped down to my bra and underwear. Awesome. That will live on forever on the internet.
Welcome back to Unfiltered Parenthood. I say welcome back. This is actually going to be my first episode as the rebrand of Unfiltered Parenthood. And I'm so excited because I'm kicking off this new episode, this new chapter of the podcast with a really inspiring guest. And I'm so excited that she's come on the show. I'm sort of fangirling a little bit over here. You probably know her as the queen of social media. I know her because I did her SMU course. I think it was last year. But today I want to go a little bit behind the titles with her and try and get to know her a little bit better and the real side of parenthood and entrepreneurship. So on the show today, I have the wonderful Rachel Pedersen, and I'm so, like I say, so excited. She has built an incredible online empire teaching people how to do social media and marketing. She's empowered loads of people, millions of people to find freedom and success through social media. But her journey hasn't been without challenges. So I wanted to jump into that a little bit. And she's recently published a sort of an open letter, a blog where she shared some very personal experiences, and she's been very open about things on TikTok as well. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on. I'm so happy you're on the new episode of Unfiltered Parenthood. It's lovely to have you.
I am so glad to be here. And by the way, my book is called Unfiltered. So great minds think alike. Unfiltered. I
Yeah,
love it.
we'll just jump into the book actually. How is it going? Obviously, you launched it recently, and has it been doing well?
Yeah. So the book has done pretty well. It was my first book. And I know
Yep.
we'll probably talk more about this. I was incapacitated during the time of the book launch because of just mental health. And so it could have done better. I'll be super transparent about that. But when I say that, I feel like I'm being hard on myself because the book actually just got this little foil thing added to it because it became a USA
Okay.
Today bestseller. I
Oh,
think we
wow,
were in the
amazing.
I think we were in the top 20 USA Today bestseller books when it launched, and it hit number one on all of Amazon. So I can't really complain. I think I just, you know how when you can't control the outcome of something, it's so hard to ever be satisfied. But the coolest thing has been really like hearing people's stories of reading this book and feeling like they're getting permission to not do things the way that everybody else teaches you have to do things or growing in confidence or feeling comfortable admitting, oh, I have anxiety or I have depression, or in my case, some things that are even more intense. So
Yeah.
I've loved the impact that this book has made, regardless of whether or not it became a New York Times bestseller. I'm really pleased with how this book has been helping people.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think you did a video on YouTube actually that I think it was quite an older one of your YouTube videos where you were talking about how we're never satisfied with what we have, that we need to be more grateful. You could get to the 70 to 80,000 pounds, which is what you're comfortable living with.
Mhm.
That's what you need to sort of survive. And then it's, but if I get this book launch, or if I get that client, or if I get that big house or that big
Yes.
car, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be happy. And it's every time you hit that goal, there's something else that you want to get,
Mhm.
and that's fine. But obviously, like you say, it's you've got to recognize what it is that you're actually looking for rather than searching for things.
I will say I experienced that in a big way, that feeling of, is there something I'm missing? Is there something else? And for a while, I looked for it in like the concepts of kind of the material or achievements or awards. And I experienced that for quite a few years. And I didn't realize like what I was missing was all internal and I had to do some work. But being on the other side of it, it took me a while to get there. Being on the other side of that, experience that feeling. Now it's wild because I can literally walk into a store and the cutest clothes are everywhere. And I'm like, but I don't really need any more clothes. I'm so happy. Or if I rip a hole in one of my socks, I pull out my needle and thread and I sew it up. And like life has just kind of gotten to this place of like, I am content with how life looks, that everything else is just bonus.
Yeah. You've obviously been very vocal and very open on TikTok, especially about your sort of your mental health struggles. What was it that kind of, what do you have a, not a limit, but do you have a certain amount that you share with the public on social media, or was there ever a part of you that thought, oh, should I share this? Do they need to know this? What was your kind of thing of
Mhm.
being that vulnerable? Because I know when I try and
Yeah.
do it, I think, oh, no one wants to hear me going on about that. You need to know that. And
So, right around the time that my book launched, some people know this, some people don't, but most people do in this space. So, I actually had a fully public breakdown where I probably posted several hundred posts within a span of 48 hours. And
yeah.
I pretty much revealed everything about my life, all my secrets, the people who had done me dirty. I ranted about things I was upset about. At one point, I stripped down to my bra and underwear. Awesome. That will live on forever on the internet. So during that, so during that time, there were no limits because I wasn't doing well. Today, I do try to keep it somewhat minimal. And the only reason for that is because my oldest daughter's friends are now starting to follow me on social. And they'll often show her like my videos. She's not on social. So she'll see them. And
Yeah.
I have to make sure that I don't make her look bad with the way that I choose to be vulnerable. And I don't want her to have a miserable experience. So I do try to keep things like lighter for the most part. I don't make it all about the fact that I'm bipolar, but I also do have a limit. I went through some like health struggles the last year and I got a new diagnosis as well as bipolar. And it was a clinical diagnosis, and I have not shared it anywhere because I don't want to create any type of like frustration, stigma for my daughter. So I do have limits, but I'm pretty open
Yeah.
to talking about everything else. So yeah, that's how I approach it. Yeah.
Do you think in a way that it was therapeutic for you? I know that sounds like a strange thing to
Mhm.
ask, but because you've got that
Yeah.
kind of record of being so vulnerable and so open, especially like on TikTok and social media, that you can look back at it now and go, oh, I can see where maybe where the slip was, where it happened,
Yeah.
and maybe what my trigger was, and whereas some people wouldn't
Yeah.
have that sort of documentation of it.
Yeah. I'm actually so glad that I did that when I wasn't quite me fully, if that makes sense. I was
Yeah.
just in a place where I was like, I felt this compulsion to share everything. And I'm glad that's how it played out. And the reason for that is because I don't think anyone in the marketing industry has come forward as being bipolar, at least not until that point. Now I'm seeing people do it and I'm like, yes. If I had just gone away quietly and gone and gotten help and gotten, a diagnosis, meds, done the healing work for complex trauma, I think that I would have kept it to myself because being a trailblazer in that way would have felt very scary. And
Yeah.
the fact that by the time I came back, it was like, it's out there. The whole industry knows. I was
Yeah.
actually relieved because I never had to decide, am I going to share this or am I not? And so it was already out there and it was the band-aid was ripped off. And then I do love, so I check my Facebook memories almost every day. And I love to see, okay, so in 2020, this is what I was struggling with. Oh, I see the hallmarks of some of the patterns that I've had throughout my life. And then in 2021, 2022, yeah, I'm glad it's on the internet.
Yeah. I think it
Yeah.
in a way, to me, it does make you, because you've got this huge company and this huge following, and you're so big on social media and in our sort of space, that uh, to me it makes you more relatable in a way, because we've all got our own kind of shit going on, and it's, oh, okay, she's got stuff as well. She's not this just like big YouTuber, celebrity, sort of TikToker. She is just a mum that's got her own struggles going on, and we've all got those things going on in our lives. And I think in a way, I know I appreciate it wasn't probably nice for you at the time, but for us, it makes you more relatable. But when you've obviously got your 3 children,
Mhm,
and I know you got married. You're obviously married with your 3 children, and you got
mhm.
married very quickly, didn't you? After you met your now husband, I
And
think it was less than 2 weeks, was it? It was 10
it was
days, was it? Have I
13
got that right?
days. We
13
met and
days,
got
yeah.
married 13 days later. Yes. That was wild. There have only been a couple of moments throughout my life where I just had such a strong gut feeling that I said, I'm going to throw caution to the wind and go for this, even though it logically doesn't make any sense. And I also knew myself well enough to know that I had dated. I had a kid already. I had been engaged once and almost twice. And I remember someone close to me was so upset. She's, you can't get married to him. You just met him. And she's, you've just dated so many fill in the blank, so many guys that weren't great. And I said, but I never married them. I wouldn't marry him if he was a jerk or a loser or anything like that. And there was a lot of opposition to us getting married. And the thing is, this gut feeling was so strong. And I just knew this is the first time in my life that I feel safe 100% with a man. And I was like, let's just do it. Let's do it. I don't want to sit around, date for 2 years. I get scared. I run away. I push you away, anything like that. Let's go for it. And
Yeah.
it was honestly probably the best life decision I've made. So I'm pretty happy about it. And we're coming up on 11 years now. So wild.
Yeah, you've doing yeah, that's going some, isn't it, really, over a decade, that for people that have got married within 13 days. Fighting against the odds, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely get that. Me and my husband, I met him when I was 15. I'm 36 now. We did have a bit
Wow.
of a break in the middle, but I met him when I was 15. And I still remember the first day that I met him. I remember what he was wearing. I remember what he said to me. It was as if it was yesterday. And I knew then that
Mhm.
they say that some people say they don't believe in love at first sight. I do, because that
I do
day
too.
was like, it was like a thunderbolt for me. I felt something that day, and it was like, that man is mine.
Yes.
I'm having him.
Oh, I felt it too. Once Paul realized I was trying to meet him because we were being set up, but he didn't know and I knew. And so
Yeah.
I actually walked up to him. I arrived at the house where the get together was, and someone handed me a baby as I walked in the door. They were like, "Here, can you hold the baby?" And I'm like, "Of course I can." So I'm walking around with the baby for a little while, pass the baby off. I see Paul sitting. He is scruffy. Like he's got overgrown beard. He's in sweats. He looked like he did not try at all. And I decided to try to flirt with him. And I was like, hey, can I plug my charger in there for my phone? And he literally gives me a look up. And he goes, no, go find your own charger. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? So it turns out he thought I was married. But then the moment he found out I was single,
Okay.
it was like, I remember he just walks up to me. He says, hi, I'm Paul. And I'm like, hi, I'm Rachel. And it was like, that was history. The rest
Yeah.
is our story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. It's brilliant. 13 days. Yeah.
Mhm.
So going back to your empire, your business, your social media, you obviously came from, I think you were a college dropout, weren't you? You haven't got a formal education, and then you decided to go into the social media marketing, and obviously it's grown exponentially, and you've worked with some really big names that I know of. And how did that kind of come about? What was the sort of the catalyst for you going,
Mhm.
right, this is the industry that I want to go into, this is what I can do, this is what I'm good at?
It wasn't even necessarily on purpose. The first hints for me, oh gosh, so this was 2010, 2011. 2011. I was on mostly Twitter. I was on Facebook. I've been on Facebook since. And I would, this is back when I used to drink a lot. So my daughter would go to sleep and I would fill up a mason jar full of boxed wine because we had no money. So I would chug the boxed wine and watch episodes of The Bachelor or The Colony or whatever. And I decided to start tweeting at the stars and the producers and stuff.
Okay.
And they started to tweet me back. And before you know it, I actually built a relationship with one of the female producers of The Bachelor. And we had a great like back and forth over email for I want to say years to come. It was actually really wild. So that was the first indication that there was something on social, that something bigger could happen. You could reach outside of where you were. At that time, I was in poverty, like full on, fully on welfare, on
Yeah.
food stamps. And knowing that I could reach outside of my own bubble through social, you would think that I would have figured something out then, but I didn't. I didn't figure it out until until I was 25. And I was married at this point, pregnant with my second. And a client came in and we started talking about marketing. And she literally offered me an opportunity to do their marketing for their fast food fried chicken chain. And I said,
Wow.
I want to do it. And then I jumped in and I was completely underqualified. So I just learned as I went.
That's amazing. That it's sort of that you literally just started from tweeting people. That's a pretty good story to have. I wish it
Yeah.
happened for everyone like that.
Yeah.
It's yeah, not that easy, unfortunately, to get into it now at the moment. I think otherwise everyone would just be
Mhm.
tweeting Hollywood stars all the time.
Yes, for sure.
What's been the hardest thing for you as a parent with even having the flexibility of having your own business and
Mhm.
your own kind of company and your own empire? What's the hardest
Yeah.
thing for you about being a parent that works that much?
It was harder in probably the first 7 years of building the businesses. Because when you're in the build stage, it's a grind. Like, even if
Yeah.
you don't work 100 hours a week, it's just you're always stressed. You're thinking about it, you're obsessing, you're wanting time to learn and study and find better ways to do things. You always basically feel like this entire business is completely inadequate and I'm not a great leader. And I think the hardest part was that it was almost impossible to balance like the younger years with business. So I remember like when Dom was a baby, I would be on client calls breastfeeding him. And
Yeah.
I would be sometimes on the sidelines of a soccer game taking like an emergency fire call with a client with a headphone in my ear and trying to make it seem like I wasn't doing business because I wanted to not look like the mom that I was able to be there for the kids' things, but my mind wasn't always mentally checked in. Now, more recently, I've experienced a lot more like breakthrough in disconnecting and being like, oh, there's always going to be stress. There's always going to be an emergency or someone who needs more support or whatever, or a team member who's going through a crisis, or like it's always going to be there. So I've learned how to completely shut off, and that's helped so much. More recently, I feel like I found really good balance with business, but that took me like 7, 8 years to find. And
Yeah.
I wish more people were honest about that. The early years, I felt like I was failing my business and failing my kids all the time, no matter
Yeah.
which one I was present in. And now today I'm like, oh, cool. So we can do a family dinner, play a game at the table, go play karaoke with everyone. Everyone gets a few turns. And then I can go finish that thing that I was thinking about earlier. But I finally learned how to pause the business. And the big realization for me was that it never ends. It never stops if you don't
Yeah.
learn how to just be like, nope, you need to wait.
Yeah, I put a post out on my own TikTok, I think it was last week or the week before, very similar to what you've just said, is that
Mhm.
I feel like I'm failing constantly as a parent
Yes.
because I have the things that most parents have. Did I spend enough
Mhm.
time with them? Did I give them healthy enough food today? Did we go out enough
Mhm.
today? Did I let them have too much screen time? And all of that I think
Yep.
is general parent worries. But I have it from the business side as well of what you said. I feel
Yep.
sometimes that I'm disconnecting a little bit because I will, while he's on his book, he's reading a book, for example, or he's having his tea, I'm sitting on TikTok and I'm doing it for my business. I'm doing it for research. I'm looking at what's trending, what my clients are doing, what have they posted, what's gone out. And then he comes over and he wants something, and I'm on my phone, or I have a message come through and it's, oh, just put your phone down.
Mhm.
And I really struggle with it because it's,
Yeah.
I do struggle with it. I've started trying to get myself into a routine of like time blocking now and being quite
Yeah.
consistent with time blocking my hours. But even then, it's still difficult.
Yeah. It really is. And another thing that has been interesting with like business and what I built and then being a parent is sometimes it's hard to meet other parents of my kids' friends or other classmates' parents because outside of business, like I just want to be Rachel, if that makes sense. I just
Yeah.
want to be mom, wife, friend. I'm not necessarily super different outside of business, but it's a different side of me. I'm more reserved. I'm pretty quiet most of the time, unless I'm with people I really know well. And so, like, even things like when their teachers say, "Oh, what do you do for work?" I'm like, I really hope this person doesn't already recognize me because I don't want to go there. I just want to be mom
Yeah.
who's checking in on my kid and their grades, etc. And so I get actually pretty self-conscious about that. I can tell when a parent is trying to dig and be like, "Have I seen you
Get
before?" And
info.
I'm like, "Let's quick steer away from it. Let's just talk about the
Yeah.
kids at the park." Yeah, so that one's actually been weird. I get funny about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that when you've got such a big following, like you say, it's difficult to not have those people that do recognize you come up to you and go,
Mhm.
"Oh, I need some help with my TikTok or my social media. Can you just give me a bit of advice?" And you have to go,
Yep.
"No, I'm just here with my children. Leave me alone."
Yeah. We've been at, like, Target. It's happened to me a lot. We get stopped in places and people it's always too when I, like, look my worst. It's when I've got,
Yeah.
like, greasy hair in my stained sweats and no makeup on and 6 zits on my face, and then they're like, "Are you Rachel Pedersen?" And Paul knows to quickly grab the kids and shuttle them away so that people don't we keep our kids pretty private. So he just grabs the kids, shuffles them away, and then I'll give them some advice, take a picture, whatever they want to do, and then go back to the fam. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's that I don't mind that as much because we've got a pretty good system down. Let's keep the kids away from it. We don't want them to even see that type of interaction. They can find out when they're older.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you like? What's the like misconception? I can't talk. What's the biggest misconception people have about you as a parent that is running this
Mhm.
business? You obviously mentioned that people come up to you sometimes because they recognize you. Do you think that they
Yeah.
have a misconception about you?
Yeah. So I get this one. A lot of people, actually, on a lot of podcast interviews, the assumption is that I don't spend very much time with my kids or that
Okay.
I'm a distant mom or I'm always working. And I actually get that so much. It's really surprising. And what people don't realize when they ask that is that I wake up as early as I need to get work done in order to have work done in time for family time. We spend so many hours every week with our kids, it's not even funny. Like, our
Yeah.
kids get sick of us, you know? And weekends are almost completely unplugged. And, like, for example, my daughter, she started a musical at her school, and I put in the time to create, like, custom couture costumes for her, and I put in 200 hours on that, and she would
Yeah.
come and sit with
I
me,
saw
we'd
you
listen
posted
to
about that on
audiobook.
TikTok, didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna save so much money, and then I spent, like,
Yeah.
100 on fabrics, but,
Yeah.
like, they turned out incredible, and it made that experience for her so special. My kids can
Yeah.
literally say every morning, "Mom, are you free this morning?" And I'll be like, "Yep." The 2 girls do this a lot, and then they'll be like, "Can you curl my hair? Can you braid my hair? Can you" etcetera. We spend a lot more time with our kids than people realize, but it's super concentrated and intentional. And then we also have times where we're like, "Okay, feel free to be on electronics tonight. Feel free to go in your rooms, call friends. We're gonna do some, like, us time now."
Yeah.
But, yeah, people I especially notice, like, a lot of guys assume that I don't spend any time with my kids, and I'm like, "Projection?" No,
Yeah.
yeah, I have really close relationships with all 3 of my kids. And I don't think they would want more time with me. Does that make sense? It's so
Yeah.
rich, it's so intense. Like sometimes they want to do their own thing too and have their lives outside of mom and dad.
Yeah. We as
Mhm.
parents, we annoy our kids, don't we? That's what we're here for.
Have
They
to.
don't need to be with us all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, you touched on then actually about oh, what was it you just said? That about your like the you very close knit and everything, and you've got with your
Mhm.
children, you spending time with them.
Yeah.
Your husband being that support system. How important is it for you to be able to carve out that time with just you and your husband, like you say, without the children? And how do you manage to do that? So you've got the
Mhm.
business, then you've got
Mhm.
mum, and then you've got
Yeah.
wife. How do you manage to section out the wife part of it as well?
Okay, so something that's interesting is my husband Paul is also like my best friend. We're each other's best friends.
Yeah.
There are so many days where we sit and just talk for hours. And I'm like, we could talk about the whole world 20,000 times and never get sick of it.
Yeah.
So, a few things that we do, and this is in this season because it's different in each season. And I hope most people realize that. Like season to season, things change. So, in the mornings, I cook us breakfast, a breakfast from scratch. He, by the way, gets the kids ready in the morning. He's like a rock star. He makes sure their outfits are on point. He makes sure they have their lunches packed. And then I cook us breakfast, me and him. And then we sit and we talk for a little bit, talk about what the day is going to look like. More recently, we've been meditating together. So we'll do a 10-minute
Okay.
meditation. He used to always fall asleep and snore during them. So I'd be like, you need to leave the room. This is distracting. But that's been so nice. And then we just talk about what the day looks like, anything that we need to prepare for. Sometimes I'll give him the grocery list in the morning. Hey, here's what I need because I want to make this and this for dinner. I love cooking, by the way. It's one of my favorite things to do. So the more I can
Oh,
cook,
you better
the
than me. I
better.
hate
And
cooking.
oh, once you learn, like it's addicting. Yes, we'll do just our touch base. And then some days, as long as we're not slammed with like new client launches or programs, I'll also make us a quick lunch and make that from scratch. Healthy, takes about 20, 30 minutes. And then we'll just eat together, talk. Sometimes I'll bring it to my desk and then he'll come and he pulls up a chair right here and sits and talks to me while I'm getting tasks done. So those are built in little moments that I really like, but it also helps that he's at home full time right now.
Yeah.
And then evenings are a big time for us. So we love to watch shows and movies and pause the movie and show and talk. That's one of my favorite things. And then, of course, spend quality time together. And then weekends, we do a lot together. It'll be like, do you want to play like video games? Do you want to play a game together? Do you want to go on a walk together? And we both just make an effort to initiate it because we were both busy at different times. So it's, hey, I'm
Yeah.
free. Do you have time? No, not right now. Okay, cool. Let's connect later. And then once in a while, we're really bad at this, but once in a while, we'll book a date night. We don't do a lot of those because I hate spending money when I make good food. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to go to a
Yeah.
restaurant and pay $100 when I can make this for, $12. So once in
Yeah.
a while we'll do date nights, but more often than not, we like to go out with friends. So we'll do a double date and we love hanging out with friends at restaurants. And that's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm not a big cook myself. I'm a chuck it in the oven and hope it doesn't burn kind of person. So you were just touching then on your kids with, and it just reminded me actually, because one
Mhm.
of the things that I wanted to ask you was being in the world of social media, and obviously social media is changing constantly.
Mhm.
Is there any advice that you would give to parents that might be worried that their children are having excessive screen time or anything to do with like all of the issues around the sharing their children online? I don't share
Mhm.
my son
Mhm.
online. I don't share pictures of him, but
Yeah.
obviously I know there are parents out there and certainly parents out
Yeah.
there that do these like family accounts. Do you have any advice for parents that maybe are struggling with do you
Yeah.
think it's okay or
I actually haven't taken a stance on this like publicly before, but I'll just go out there and say I am very anti family accounts. I hate when children
yeah.
are being used for monetization. I understand that
Yeah.
in some situations it may be necessary, like for people who are struggling financially and they do what they have to do to get out of it. But I'm not a fan of them. I will say, when it comes to social, and this can maybe help guide some parents, my kids aren't allowed to just go on social for until they're 18. So my kids only have certain platforms that we have the logins to, and they have fake names, fake photos. It can't be a platform where people can message them or they can just have free range. Pinterest is really safe. So my
Yeah.
kids love having Pinterest accounts. I'm fine with that. But my kids are not allowed on social media. And so they do ask a lot. And I'm just a big believer that if your kids want to be on a platform, you better spend some time on that platform and learn what it's all about. Learn what the culture is, learn what the worst case culture is, learn what they could be exposed to. And it's
Yeah.
not just the danger of strangers, it's there are some pretty perverse things on the internet, and certain
Yeah.
platforms are more prime for kids discovering it than others. If your kids are like, everyone else is on Snapchat or whatever, ask yourself, what could a teenager need with a platform where photos disappear in 24 hours? And then just use that critical thinking. So I don't share my kids on social. Maybe once a year, I'll show an occasional picture, but it's just not a thing we do, at least not anymore. And I'm a huge believer that parents need to get on platforms before their kids get on it. Get on the platform, go
Yeah.
spend time on the platform. If you don't know what the platform is, then you need to be careful. I remember like one of my kids got this app called like Wolves or something, and it's like a role play game, and you're first
Okay.
player RPG and you play as a wolf. But I didn't know that it was, even for kids, open to worldwide chat. So anyone
Yeah.
could contact them. And once I hopped onto the platform and started playing, I got contacted by a creep. And I was like, oh, this is not a safe game. Spend time where your kids want to spend time. That's pretty important.
Yeah. I've had a similar thing recently with Roblox. Yeah,
Yep.
Roblox. My little boy wanted to go on it because I think he must have had it mentioned at a school, one of the kids at school.
Yep.
And I thought, it's a game that it can't be that harmful. I set it
Yeah.
up on my iPad for him, and I was sat next to him while he was playing this game, and I turned the chat off. But the games are like open source. They're like anyone can
Yeah.
create games as far as I can see. So the game that he
Mhm.
was playing was fine. But then the next game to it was like someone running around with a knife and killing people. And I'm like, whoa, okay, that's gone. That's not good. So
Yes.
yeah, that was swiftly deleted. And there's me just thinking it was a
Yeah.
innocent game for children. So
We
not
also
good.
are, so I'm a big fan of screen time. I know that sounds weird,
Yeah.
certain types of screen time. And I know a lot of parents are like, oh, we got to limit it. We got to limit it. And I'm like, my son just recited tons of facts to me about Pakistan. He just taught
Okay.
me everything. Oh, he's 6. And he's, Mom, can we please go on a trip to Pakistan? I want to see it. It's so beautiful. And he like tells me everything about Pakistan. And I'm like, what? So I'm a fan of YouTube videos that are educational, and
Yeah.
even like what is it called? Edutainment, where it's like
Yeah.
educational and entertaining. Huge fan of those. I'm also a fan of games that like build your creativity. So like Star Stable, where you get to pick your horse and ride the horse and take care of the horse. I want to get my kids on Sims so badly because I
Oh my
love
gosh,
the
yeah.
Sims.
I used to love Sims when
Yeah.
I was younger.
Oh, we got to get like a computer for that, because I love how it made me think about what should a house look like? What's the design? So I'm a
Yeah.
fan of screen time, especially because most of our careers in the future are going to be based on screens. Yeah,
Not going
I'm
anywhere,
a
is it?
fan of it, and it's not going
Yeah.
anywhere.
Which is good for you. Which is good for you and
I'm so
people
happy.
in social media. Now, I didn't want to, I'm obviously conscious of the time. I didn't want to end on a sort of a bummer note. So I'm just gonna, I wanted to say, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad.
Thank
The only
you.
reason I'm bringing it up is that my mum passed away as well. So I do kind of know what you're kind of
Yeah.
going through. And I wanted to ask, whether your dad passing away has changed your sort of parenting approach in a way, or has it made you think any differently about parenting? And
Yeah.
I know it did
You
with me
know,
with my mum. It'd be
yeah.
this like reality check.
It's interesting. I'll just speak super candidly about it. It's not as big of a bummer lately because I've finally gotten out of the stage of grief now. It's
Yeah.
okay. That's just how it is now. It took a little while, but my dad was not a great dad when I was young. He was actually a pretty terrible dad. Love you, dad. Sorry. And then he was he was a great dad when I was an adult, and he lived with us 9 of our 10 years of marriage that he was alive. So he lived with me and Paul, and he was mine and Paul's one of our best friends. We talked with him about everything. He was always there for me and Paul, but he was also not the best grandpa. He really was not available. In his mind, he wanted to be this like amazing grandpa. So he'd buy all the supplies for making cookies from scratch and then never do it with the kids. So I love him. He was not a good grandpa. My kids got over the grief very fast because they just weren't that close with him. They loved him, but they
Yeah.
weren't, there wasn't the depth of relationship. So it didn't, there was something big that happened before he died. The month before he passed away, he said, Rachel, I am blown away by who you've become as a mother. And he said, some of the decisions that you make aren't ones that I would have agreed with, but I look at your kids and your kids trust you and they come to you for advice and they're open and honest and you treat them like they're not children. You treat them like they're like equals. And
Cool.
it's
Yeah.
incredible to see, yeah, who you are as a mom. And that meant the world to me. But what it has changed is when I become a grandma, hopefully in the far off future, one of my good friends from high school, she just told me she's becoming a grandma. And I was like, no, we're too young. So I know that as a grandma, it doesn't have to be every day, but I would like to have really intentional time with my grandkids. I want to build that beautiful like playroom where the kids are like, I want to
Yeah.
go to grandma's house and I want to make cookies with them and I want to do just the things that a grandma's supposed to do. It
Yeah.
really made me question, what do I want my life to be like when the kids are grown? And I want to be available to their kids to be that nurturing, loving, soft grandma. And that's the biggest thing that it changed for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm so similar after, like I say, after my mum died. I was wanting to anyway, but since she
Mhm.
passed, me and my husband have said that when our children are older, that we want to be that house where their friends come to, that they just walk in the door
Mhm.
and they know it's an open door, anyone can come. We're that
Mhm.
house that they can come to, and if they go and they leave, they can always come back again. And because yeah, life is, it can change very quickly, and I think it
Yeah.
does, when something like that happens, it does make you readjust certain things. So I'm
So
obviously so conscious of the time and I know that you've got to go. So I will end with just saying thank you so much again for coming on. I didn't think for 1 minute you were going to come on the podcast because it's a little tidgy tiny podcast to what you're used to, I'm sure. Um, so I really appreciate it. Is there anything you
I
wanted to add before you go?
Oh, one of the big things is for anyone who is handling the balancing act of work, life, parenting, business, all of the above, really and truly recognize that you're always going to feel like you're failing until you
Yeah,
decide I'm doing good enough and
yeah,
do the best that you can, give yourself grace and just enjoy the present moment wherever you are. Business can wait a second. When you are in work mode, your kids can wait a second. They'll be fine. But don't always be rushing to the next thing or else have you ever heard the story of the silver ball where he always pulls the string and every time he pulls
yeah.
the string a little more of his life fast forwards? Don't do that in the micro moments of life. Be present because there will always be something demanding your attention away from where you currently are.
Thank you. I think
Mm.
that's a really nice note to end on, Rachel. Thank you so much. And obviously, I will put all of Rachel's details and the book and everything in the show notes for go and grab the book. Yeah, so once again, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And we will see everyone for the next episode. Thank you very much.